All right, everyone, we start off today with the epic wrecking of the Democrats, courtesy not just of Youngkin. That race, I expected Youngkin to win. I gave him a 70% official chance in the last round of polls because he was like 1.5, 2 points ahead. I had said the break-even for McAuliffe is if McAuliffe is ahead by 1.5. By the way, if you look at that margin, it's exactly how much Youngkin won by. Yay! Another Sticks win. What I didn't expect was New Jersey to be in play, and I don't think that many people did expect that. This, in my opinion, points to mass turnout being what's responsible for this. Turnout across the board against leftoids, against Democrats in general. Now is the time where they make 5 or 6 different excuses for why they got epically cock-smacked and refuse to do any soul-searching. Now, before I get into this, and I got like fucking 3 videos basically on the slew of elections to do today, including one of the new tech exclusives. Keep in mind, down below, if you're watching this video on YouTube, there will be a pinned comment with links to 4 other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind, I make 2 exclusive videos every day, sometimes 3 on those platforms, and one of the election videos will be an exclusive today, so definitely stay tuned. Join me on one or more of those platforms. This was an epic wrecking. This wasn't just, well, the Dems are going to be demoralized before the midterms. This is more like alarm bells should be going off in their head. But instead, the Democrats are doing the schism thing. And this is what I've pointed out. This is their biggest weakness. The party absorbed a bunch of leftoids, some of which rigged their way into that position just by picking off Dem incumbents that never had to win an election in the first place for the last 20 years because they were just a perpetual incumbent and therefore technically a weak candidate in a safe blue district where you just have to outleft them. They've got this core of people in the party. Right now, they're trying to make the case that these losses are about the Democratic Party needs to embrace more progressive causes. The Democratic Party is too far right. Look at the races, the results, and the reasoning behind them, and you'll see that it's the exact opposite. If the Democrats don't want to commit political suicide in the midterms, they need to at least speak out, and if not, maybe even force out people like AOC. They need to kick them out of the party. Vote to suspend their party membership and kick them out. And I'm serious. If they don't do this, they're going to have bigger problems than just Joe Biden's unpopular. It's dragging down the down-ballot races. You can't just blame Joe Biden. I'll get into the races really quickly here, and then I'll talk about the meaning. And by the way, it has broader meaning for 2024, not just for the midterms. And they're backpedaling, watching them say, well, don't read into it too much. It's really not that important, after spending the last half a year saying, these are monumental races. The Democrats have the opportunity to show that the era of Trump is over. There's no red wave. Oh boy, yes there is. The Republicans may end up having the gubernatorial slot in New Jersey. Yes, that's not significant against a Dem candidate with an average polling lead of 6.5 or 7 points. That's not significant. That, by the way, has nothing to do with turnout. Here's the thing. In Virginia, this was largely the result of McAuliffe making a mistake, but keep in mind what specific mistake that was. It was proclaiming support for critical race theory and calling his opponent a conspiracy theorist and saying it was terrible that the idea that parents would be involved in their children's education. Not only was it a really meaty, slogan-eared, talking point meme that Youngkin could use, it is leftoid. That doesn't come from the main line of the Dem party. Critical race theory is a pseudo-scientific pile of Marxist horseshit embraced by people like Elon Omar. The leftoids helpfully to lose this race for the Democrats. Now, of course, the economy plays a role. Virginia is a state with multiple large ports. There are shortages. There's inflation. There's unemployment. And Cole County and shit. Everything is going wrong. I'm not surprised that Youngkin won. Then we go to New Jersey. There is no way to reconcile the prolonged polling aggregate that you had enough polls at the 11th hour to judge sort of where the candidates were. There is no physical way I can think of other than systemic goddamn oversampling that I can't even possibly believe exists, because it would be beyond 2016 oversampling by several points. I don't think that's what's happening in New Jersey. You've got a Republican right now actually tied. It is a dead tie. It is like 1,000 votes separating the two. Now, I'll also talk about fortification. In New Jersey, you have a partially fortified election. This is why at the 11th hour, literally like 2 or 3 a.m., several tens of thousands of mail-in ballots suddenly got counted, and they all happened to be for the Democrat. Even then, though, they came up short, and it was an awfully suspiciously even number, which shows me that there was some attempt to fortify, and they still came up short. They didn't expect to need to fortify it so much. Now they've paused vote count at the moment. They're probably like, oh shit, what do? We can't print the ballots now. We got to get these in. There's a limit on how long this can take. I think we just accidentally New Jersey. Now, again, I believe the Democrats will print enough ballots. They'll find enough ballots in a locked trunk somewhere or in a garbage can, probably to fortify the election. This shows us two things, though. Number one, there are limits to fortification. They didn't expect it to be close, which points to high turnout. This points to a depression of Dem turnout and an increase in Republican turnout. Why could that possibly be the case? Are people voting for their own self-interest and saying, hey, maybe we want inflation to go away? Are people along the border voting for better border security because they're seeing fucking camps full of homeless migrants and shuffling around and shit and crime skyrocketing? Could it be people in port cities are watching all those ships idling offshore, slowly crepitating and getting covered in barnacles, and they're like, hey, it's kind of annoying. It's spoiling my oceanside view. Could it be any of 1,000 other goddamn things that are going wrong with the Biden economy and with the Dem platform? It's all of the above. So even though in New Jersey, there's a better than 50-50 chance the Dems pull it off anyway. You still got like 3% of the vote outstanding. You got a lead of 1,500 votes. Underwhelming. They'll find some more mail-in ballots or count them twice or do whatever they need to do. This also points out the difference between a fortified and defortified election. New Jersey, fortified. Oh, at 2 a.m. we get 30,000 Dem ballots. Oh, it's almost exactly the number needed to get the Democrats just over the edge. It's like that famous image from 2020 where, there's that famous jump in the number of Biden votes, again, right at the proper time and right at the proper level to stop Trump from winning. I think that was Pennsylvania or Michigan or something. That's fortification. There's another word for it we're not even allowed to use in YouTube videos. And I think we can for this election, though. So if I say it was messed with or there were shenanigans, I think that's allowed. There's literally only one election you're not allowed to talk about. Virginia defortified its election. Judge stepped in and said, yes, we're not going to count the mail-in ballots unless there's a witness signature, and no, we're not going to extend polling times and stuff like that. In Virginia, where you've got a clean election, the additional bump in support, which is similar to the one you have in New Jersey, wins you the election. In New Jersey, you come up just a little bit mysteriously short in a state with machine politics. It goes past this, though. And of course, C. Tirelli, I believe his name is, could still win in New Jersey. I'm not writing off the possibility that they literally didn't print enough ballots beforehand and they just, whoops, we just made a huge goddamn boo-boo. I'm not miscounting the possibility. I'm just saying it's not like in Virginia. That race has been called by every credible outlet. Credible as far as you can push that term. It goes further, though. I'll be making a separate video on the mayoral election in Buffalo where the socialist lost by 17 points to a goddamn write-in campaign, tried to do an AOC and pop off a relatively unpopular incumbent. Didn't work. Whoops, socialism did an oopsie poopsie caca stinky mess in its fucking diaper. Socialism is lost in the United States. And then in Seattle, a socialist, a police abolitionist, self-professed, tried to run for to become the city attorney. Lost by a considerable amount. Socialism got wrecked too. If you put all of these things together, I can tell you exactly why the Democrats just hemorrhaged so much support. It's partially the economy, and it's partially the goddamn preachy-ass wokeness. The leftoids are the ones that got wrecked. Candidates that took up a more moderate approach generally did better. Outside of a few id-poll candidates who ran on, hey, I happen to be non-white, or something like that. I want to be the first female mayor of Kalamazoo. Outside of a few races like that, look at the people that lost in the margin. People that were tied in with leftoidism. McAuliffe's not actually a leftoid id-poller. But he was cast off successfully as one because he chose to defend critical race theory while being ignorant to what it even taught. I find it very funny. He immediately said, we're not teaching it in Virginia schools. But you are. You're using it explicitly. This is right in the educational material. It's part of the basis for the educational system there. You are teaching kids to feel bad about their skin color and to see one another as a certain shade between white and black. Well, that's critical race theory, and it's a form of Marxism, quite literally. The leftoids right now are in massive damage control mode, pissing and shitting themselves and crying about Nazis and extremism and white backlash and doing exactly what caused them to lose here. Idpol, preaching, not having any apparent self-awareness or self-reflection capabilities. The mainline Dems, meanwhile, are shaking their heads sadly and saying, oh, for the love of Pete. Horse shit. It's funny to watch. I'm having a great day. Yeah, I mean, both of the main videos today, well, all three of the main videos are about the fucking elections. Now, what does this mean going into the midterms? It means the Dems really need to do some soul searching, but can't, and they're fucked. Honestly, looking at the races here and the margins involved, I don't know how they managed to hold the House and Senate after the midterms. I really don't see them doing that. I think the alarm bells are going off. The problem is the party schism has become so severe. There's a lack of communication between the leftoids that have sort of the youth appeal charisma side of things and the moneyed parts of the party that are required to actually strategize races. There's such a disconnect between these groups. I don't know. Meanwhile, looking at 2024, you have to wait till after the midterms to make sort of a barometer on the basic rough shape of how that election will go. Could be tomorrow the shortages could clear up. Well, then they wouldn't be a campaign issue. So you need more time. You have to be closer to the election. And guessing things even a month out is tenuous at best. You can analyze things and look at polls and shit and make educated guesses, but you can't guess everything. Like, for instance, McAuliffe a couple months ago was a shoo-in. But nobody knew he was going to make comments in praise of critical race theory and say parents shouldn't be involved in their kids' education. One thing I will say is that Trump is now considerably more likely to be the 24 Republican candidate. He explicitly endorsed and stumped for Youngkin, not in person, but he did a tele video for him. He did an ad for him. Youngkin was repeatedly called Trump in khakis. He was repeatedly tied to him by groups of the leftoids like the Lincoln Project, Revelle Institute, the Dem Party at large. Well, a vote for Youngkin's a vote for Trump in Charlottesville. So in other words, Trump and Charlottesville are more popular than critical race theory. That's basically what that race boils down to. I believe Trump also endorsed Sia Torelli, and here's the thing. That's where your turnout comes from. Rhinos don't generate it. Jeb Bush doesn't get anyone excited. Liz Cheney doesn't get anyone excited. But Trump does. And all of the candidates that are taking up Trump's style lines, doing the meme campaign thing, and Youngkin was pretty good at this. As a candidate, he was just standard. Standard views, more or less. Standard level of speaking and charisma. He's not John F. Kennedy or something. But he's a good candidate, and he knows the meme thing. And his staff apparently did. The Republicans at this point, their staffers are probably younger than those working for the Dems. In some cases, you have Chinese spies as chauffeurs and shit among the Democrats. So there's definitely some tech literacy there. It's too bad you're reporting back to Beijing. Again, I think Trump will look at this, and he'll say, well, I guess I'm more popular than the leftoidism of the Dems, and the leftoidism there keeps growing. This will be fun in 24. Again, keep in mind, if he has a health problem, certainly if he dies, he can't run because he's not a Democrat. He has a health problem, if Biden has a health problem, or if things magically start getting a lot better, which I think we can write off as a possibility until at least after the midterms when we would have at least some fiscal sense in the House if the GOP takes it over, I think that Trump is now 99% in. I think that if Youngkin had lost, if he had managed to lose despite the polling closing, I think he'd be more hesitant. He might look for an excuse not to run, honestly, because that was a big race. Everyone called it the barometer of what was going to happen in 2024 until the moment that suddenly Terry McAuliffe was behind. Then all of a sudden it became unimportant and they did a 180 and walked back everything that they'd been saying for months. Boy, oh boy, is there a lot of propaganda. The Democrats should do some soul searching, kick out the leftoids, try to solve economic issues by, not attacking the energy sector, actually taking care of the border. Maybe you shouldn't be printing off trillions of dollars to pay for pork barrel when you've already got 5.4% inflation, but they're not going to. They're not going to soul search. Every group within the Dem Party, Biden will blame the left. The left will blame Nancy Pelosi. Black Democrats will say it was Nazis. White Democrats will say it was the insensitive nature of some Democrats towards their constituents, towards parents. They got a million ideas of what went wrong. Well, it's a little bit of everything, but they don't have any actual solutions. Their platform makes no sense. You've got a core of the party that's more like a mansion, although many of them, they won't associate with him because they're afraid. And you've got another group within the party that calls that basically Nazi adjacent. You've got a bunch of fucking Marxists within your party. How are you supposed to make a platform? So yes, going forward into the midterms, this is very, very good for Trump. It's obviously good for the people who won. It shows that New Jersey could convert into a swing state, although it had been moving in that direction a little bit over time. Hillary and Biden not as popular as like Obama. Maine. Maine's doing the same thing. The electoral map continues to shift. If we see a red New Jersey, if New Jersey looks like it's going to be in play, and or the results of the midterms, the Dems could be looking for to a Reagan versus Carter style wipeout, just so we're aware. That's about all. Peace out.